PM launches Sapotim Wantok program. Contact tracing underway in 4 provinces. And 5 million kina for ENB COVID-19 operations.
This is the National MTV News with Turaho Moria.
This is Sunday's news. Thanks for your company. A foundation has been established to help the hungry and needy during this global pandemic. Prime Minister James Marape, when launching the Sapotim Wantok Foundation recently, says through this foundation, food will be brought in bulk and distributed to people in the city. The Prime Minister has also donated half of his fortnightly pay to support the foundation.
Bags of cocoa.
The Sapotim Wantok Foundation is an initiative of the Prime Minister that brought together churches in the nation's capital to help people in need during this time of emergency. Through this foundation, food will be bought in bulks from farmers in Central Province and distributed by the churches. According to the Prime Minister, no government funding for COVID-19 will be used in this foundation.
For us, it's all about mobilizing food and to visit those amongst us in our urban areas especially, who have been laid off work or at this point in time because of restrictions from the curfew or restrictions from the general movement of people are not able to sustain themselves.
To kickstart this activity in the city, the Prime Minister will be giving half of his salary to this foundation. Truka has also stepped in to help by donating bags of rice to this cause, and a private citizen has also supported the cause by donating 35 bags of cacao. People who need food were asked to go to their nearest church to register their family names for food to be distributed to them.
Supporting Wantok Foundation, through this, will mobilize private sector help to help those who need help. But those who need help must contribute their equity to access help from Sapotim Wantok, and in this instance now, because of need for food in the city, we'll try to mobilize food or mobilize money to get food.
According to the Prime Minister, it is not mandatory for everyone to help. However, people who wish to support are encouraged to do so. Marape says it is time to extend a helping hand.
This is a voluntary thing. It's not mandatory to everyone who out there to help. Those who want to be good Samaritans and to step out to assist. Many in our society, they walk through us, they don't have smile anymore. There's no food in their cupboards. Their children are hungry. It's time when we extend a helping hand. Government is doing.
Our chairman, vice chairman and secretary have been appointed to run the foundation with the Prime Minister as its patron, and a bank account has also been created for people to help. Rayon Lakingu, National MTV News.
Deputy State of Emergency Controller Dr. Paisan Dakulala yesterday gave a full update of the contact tracing and testing of persons of interest in the 4 provinces where COVID-19 positive cases were detected. Dakulala also said PNG was fortunate that confirmed patients have been recovering from the virus just at the mild stage.
The person is now...
Deputy State of Emergency Controller Dr. Paisan Dakulala yesterday gave an overall update of COVID-19 cases and a contact tracing taking place across the 4 provinces, which are NCD, Western Province, Eastern Highlands and East New Britain.
For the NCD update, as we've been alluding to, but I think it's important that we continue to stress this, 725 contacts identified so far. These are contacts of work colleagues from the National Operations Center, Morauta House, house staffs, customs, family members, and other contacts. All these 725 contacts sample collected, tested, and tested have returned negative. All the contacts have been quarantined, including WHO staff, since 16th of April. In the East New Britain update, 584 samples of 2 confirmed cases collected to date. This includes samples from family members in 5 locked down villages of East New Britain. 152 samples out of these have returned negative. Second sample for the second confirmed case is included. 432 samples have arrived at the Central Public Health Laboratory on the 22nd April and was dispatched to Brisbane yesterday. Western Province, the 228 contact samples collected so far, 160 contacts from Kiunga, that's the rural LLG of Dome and Yogi, two villages, and 61 contacts from the Kungim village. This is now being prepared and awaiting results that will come from Brisbane probably in the first week of next week or the early part of next week.
Dr. Dakulala said that the country is anticipating more COVID-19 cases in the future, but the Deputy SOE Controller says they are yet to establish a reason why only an isolated number of cases are being confirmed compared to other countries.
The cases will probably continue to come, and we are so thankful that many of these cases who have come in our midst, they have been mild and they have gone on and improved and got better. So we just want to thank, the Lord that everything has happened the way it has, and we have not gone into the situation that is happening throughout the globe in many other countries.
He said that the frontline workers and the citizens of Papua New Guinea should remain vigilant in the fight against COVID-19.
We are trying to still understand what it is that is the situation that's different in our country, but that doesn't mean that we should be complacent. We should remain vigilant in addressing many of these issues.
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV News.
The State of Emergency Controller recently announced that certain restrictions under the state of emergency will be lifted. But Emergency Controller David Manning says strict COVID-19 guidelines must be adhered to as Papua New Guinea slowly works its way to normalcy.
The State of Emergency Controller Police Commissioner David Manning says that restrictions are slowly being lifted for a return to normalcy. He said restrictions on flight and public transport, including seaports, have been lifted for Rabaul in the East New Britain province.
All flight restrictions into and out of Rabaul have been lifted, and the port of Rabaul to be reopened as a designated international shipping port. Public transport has been reopened with operators to continue with hygiene measures of hand sanitizers on board and regular sanitizing of seats and the internal cabin of PMVs.
Manning said that approvals for domestic flights will still be under the airline's prerogative, with passenger information to be sent to the controller.
Flight approvals for travel within and between non-restricted provinces are to be maintained by the airline operators, who will supply passenger details to the National Operations Centre. This is to allow a far more effective and efficient manner in which we process applications for travel by domestic passengers.
Manning also added that the restrictions on restaurants will be lifted. Alcohol will be sold for consumption at private premises only, with churches to continue with service but under strict COVID-19 guidelines.
Restaurants will open, and social distancing measures and hand sanitizers for patrons. Alcohol is permitted to be sold for consumption on premises only. Places of worship for local services are permitted with hygiene protocols in place. This includes, of course, the supplying of hand sanitizer and sanitation of seats and observance of social distancing.
But Manning said outdoor crusades and community outreach programs are still restricted.
The national and provincial religious gatherings, that is your outreach programs, your conventions and crusades, continue to be restricted and are not permitted at this stage.
The controller said that people had to play their part to stop the spread of COVID-19, and those infected should not face stigma.
We all have a role to play in stopping COVID-19. Help us protect those who are most vulnerable and at risk. Please stop the stigma and discrimination towards people with COVID-19. It will not kill you if you follow the simple health measures constantly being delivered and advised.
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV News.
The East New Britain provincial government is expecting 5 million kina from the National Health Department to fund COVID-19 operations in the province. During a PEC meeting last Thursday, Governor Nakikus Konga said Health Minister Jelta Wong committed a total of 5 million kina for the province to use. The announcement comes following concerns raised by members of the Provincial Executive Council over lack of support from the national government to adequately respond to the 2 positive cases in the province.
I just talked to the minister an hour ago to tell him that I want to see the national government to put some money to the province. Me talking him now, that's all. And he assured me that he's going to send 5 million here. But you missed up now with him. Because all this money will you mean, all the something will come up here. So I've talked to him before this meeting, and he assured me that there will be 5 million coming. We will wait for it.
Still to come on National EMTV News, upgrading health facilities in Kiunga, mass arrest for lawbreakers in Madang, and growing cassava for commercial production in Leh. Details after the break. Welcome back. A recommended flight approved by the controller from Port Moresby landed in Kiunga yesterday, carrying 18 stranded passengers. Upon arriving from Port Moresby, these passengers were then tested by the COVID-19 response team at the airport. The flight then left Kiunga with 6 passengers who were also stranded in Kiunga for nearly a month. The 6 passengers and freight were destined for Port Moresby, Leh and other parts of the country. It is understood the flight was approved by the controller and that flights to Western Province will only be serviced when approval is granted. Meanwhile, North Fly member James Donald said as part of the COVID-19 exercise, the provincial emergency team plans to upgrade Kiunga's health facilities. An isolation and treatment centre for COVID-19 is expected to cost 1 million kina. Godwin Eki reports from Kiunga.
As part of the COVID-19 exercise in the province, North Fly District will see a new isolation and testing facility that is currently being built. This building, once completed, will be used for testing and isolating COVID-19 positive cases.
Inform everyone that we want to upgrade our facility also, which means we're looking towards installing about 2 PCR labs that will be installed in this building, and also we are looking to bring more, about 10 to 20,000 test kits COVID-19.
Member James Donald says long-term aspects of health indicators will also be considered into the future.
Looking into the future, after the COVID is over, we're anticipating that there's going to be more diseases outbreak. So we're looking at long-term aspect of health indicators of our province.
For long-term benefit of Kiunga Hospital, Donald says the facility is also part of the upgrading the status of Kiunga Hospital. He says this means after COVID-19, the hospital should be prepared in the future to cater to any other diseases that may enter the country or the province.
It's not just this facility, but there are more facilities that we intend to do, and part of exercise into going into next future, which means after COVID, what's going to be the next virus? What sort of virus do we expect? And so we need to also beef our system going forward.
He says 3 confirmed cases in border villages have been isolated and contained in the village, with all border villages for 21 days locked down and under the watchful eyes of the police and defense personnel that were deployed to these villages.
Everything is all on hold. So Kiunga town is at the moment, as I can tell, it's very peaceful. People are doing what they can do. They are staying isolated.
Similar facilities will also be replicated and to be built in Middle Fly and South Fly. Donald says the province and districts in particular are doing what they can, and setting up necessary infrastructures is very important. The cost of the building is 890,000, where $500,000 has been secured to get the construction started, with the remaining to be cleared soon. Godwin Eki, National EMTV News, Kiunga.
Still in the North Fly district, the people in Kyoga are following SOE lockdown orders where public gatherings or activities are not allowed. Local member James Donald said border villages are also doing the same and are closely monitored by police and defense personnel on the ground.
14 days up until now, Kyoga town, there is no more market. Even though the SOE directions gave us to still open up markets, we've still closed the markets, the main markets. Everyone is doing their own small sales in their own small settlements where they think they can do a sales. That's what's happening. We've also fully tightened up curfew, which starts at 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. and morning 6 o'clock in between. So it has continued and it's still on effect and still on exercise. So right now there's no public gathering, no church going, no sports, no whatsoever. Everything is all on hold. So Kyoga town is at the moment, as I can tell, it's very peaceful. People are doing what they can do. They're staying isolated. Unlike only up at the border villages everywhere, we also monitoring. We have defense personnel on sites taking control, and so a lot of control measures are in place.
Northern Police Command, comprising of Eastern Highlands Province, Morbe and Madang Police, conducted a mass arrest on Thursday at K92 mine. The suspects are from Bilimoya 1, 2 and 3 villages, the landowners of Barrack K92 mine after the villagers shut down the mine. A total of 154 suspects, including 10 juveniles, were formally arrested and charged on Friday, April 24th, on 2 counts ranging from unlawfully entering premises and being in possession of offensive weapons. Ramu District Court convicted the suspects with the maximum penalty of 2 years imprisonment and or 2,000 kina fine for adults and 1,000 kina for juveniles. More than 60 others were released after paying fines, while police moved the rest to Beyond Correctional Institution for detention. Since SP Brewery launched their cassava beer project, more farmers have been involved in growing the crop for commercial production. They currently have up to 500 farmers, of whom received their first payment last month. The farmers EMTV spoke to say they now are able to grow the crop for commercial production and, more importantly, earn an income for their families.
Sabit Daniel is amongst 27 other farmers who were the first to get paid last month. She said before they started growing the crop for production, they earned money selling other crops at the market. Geddes and Florence Yanot have also been growing cassava for this project. They said it is an avenue for them to earn an income, with plans to continue growing the crop. SP's cassava project was undertaken to encourage large-scale production of cassava in the country. In turn, this would decrease the import of malted barley that is used for beer production. Last year, SP launched their cassava processing site and started producing cassava starch for the Power Punch product.
Mainly, the first objective to align with the PNG government's investment in agriculture, create employment, create income earning opportunities within the area that we are working. We also, the project is also aimed at empowering the local communities.
Whilst SP uses cassava starch for their product, it can also be used to make flour and stock feed. Gibson Hopkos is a lead farmer at Wawin who hopes to expand his cassava field.
Now tapioca was coming set now. Now me interest la planet tapioca. Now tapioca sem work la tapioca milk mosem and help me. Not family play me too.
Department of Agriculture and Livestock Acting Regional Manager Ario Movis said the project has big potential and is supported by the DAL.
Development I'm coming to area here. At this time, we say all man all panimahat law. Making living law there. It's one of place where all can come walk now.
Lucy Kopana, National MTV News, Leh.
You're with National MTV News, stories making headlines overseas when we come back. Turning overseas, there are growing concerns about the health of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un following his heart surgery. China has sent a medical team of experts to North Korea, and the United States is monitoring the situation closely.
So much speculation swirling around the Chinese internet, it's important to clarify what we know and what we don't know. There is a Chinese medical team of experts that was sent up to North Korea 3 days ago. We know that. Also, Kim Jong-un has not been seen in public now for 2 weeks. He missed an important anniversary, which he usually is expected to publicly attend. So we know he's been missing in action, at least publicly. But everything else at this point remains unclear. For days, there has been speculation based on a North Korean defector website that Kim Jong-un underwent some sort of heart surgery. Some reports claimed that it didn't go well, but then you also had the Chinese, US and South Korean governments publicly rejecting those reports and saying that there was nothing abnormal. Here on the ground in Beijing, we haven't seen any security increase from the Chinese side at the North Korean embassy. A source in the border city of Dandong also tells us that things are normal there. So on the surface, it appears that it's business as usual, but certainly the presence of a Chinese medical team of experts in North Korea indicates that something is wrong with Kim Jong-un's health. And why is this so important? Well, North Korea is a buffer state for the two superpowers. You have the 28,000 US military troops in South Korea, and then you have China on the other side. In the past, there has always been a clear successor. This time around, if Kim Jong-un is out of action, if he is not in charge, or if the situation is perhaps worse, then it's just not clear who will be running the show, whether it would be his sister, whether it would be an uncle or military generals. So it's that sort of instability which is likely to cause so much concern both in Washington, in Seoul and here in Beijing.
Another 813 people have died with coronavirus in UK hospitals, bringing the total deaths to more than 20,000. However, the government's figures do not account for deaths that happen in care homes or elsewhere in the community.
We heard a few months ago from senior scientific advisors that they were hoping to keep the death toll under 20,000. They said if they could keep the death toll under 20,000, that would be a good result. Well, now we're seeing just how bad this situation has got here in the UK. We've passed 20,000, and in the last 24 hours, more than 800 further people confirmed to have died in hospitals from COVID-19. Nearly 5,000 more people infected as well in just 24 hours. And that doesn't include the situation in care homes. And we know that many thousands more have died in care homes. They just haven't been reflected yet in the statistics. The NHS is obviously working overtime. It has really struggled when it comes to getting personal protective equipment to people on the front line. But it has done well in other ways in terms of scaling up its capacity. It's built these huge field hospitals across the country. So there are spare beds, there are spare ventilators, but people are still dying in huge numbers. And sadly, some of them, of course, are those hospital workers, doctors, nursing staff and other employees who are on the front line. The Home Secretary in the UK, Priti Patel, spoke a little earlier about this huge death toll.
As the deaths caused by this terrible virus pass another tragic and terrible milestone. The entire nation is grieving. The action we are collectively taking is working, and your sacrifices are undoubtedly saving lives. We know that people are frustrated, but we are not out of danger yet. It is imperative that people continue to follow the rules designed to protect their families, their friends, and their loved ones. This will continue to save lives.
The death toll in Turkey is close to 2,500. The total number of registered coronavirus cases surged to over 100,000 as more people tested positive.
Maybe it stands to reason that Turkey has more coronavirus cases than anywhere outside America and Europe because it bridges east and west. Istanbul's glorious mosques are still calling the faithful to prayer, even though they are shut. And Ramadan began last night with the celebratory evening meal conducted behind closed doors. Scenes like this are all the more remarkable given that this metropolis usually teems with 16 million people, but Turkey's lockdown is also controversially different. It happens in only 31 of 81 provinces and just at weekends, in a country seemingly determined to carry on working. Though the under-20s and over 65s are ordered to stay at home, everyone else gets 5 free masks a week.
We are happy with everything, from the distribution of masks to everything else. Things are as they should be.
Istanbul's well-equipped healthcare system appears to be coping. There have been fewer than 3,000 reported deaths from over 100,000 cases. 2 airport runways have been dug up to build a new overflow hospital. And President Erdogan's claim that Turkey is handling the pandemic better than most seems widely believed.
We have reached the point of starting to flatten the curve.
Although an impressive 40,000 tests are being carried out daily, doctors in Turkey's medical association say all is not as it seems, that 25 health workers have died, that Turkey had virus cases some 3 weeks before it first admitted it, and that many cases are going unreported.
When it comes to the death toll, of course we do not have solid numbers to hand, but we have results of some local studies which show that at a minimum the death toll is more than 2.5 times the given number.
Istanbul is now in lockdown for the weekend, but come Monday these commuters will be back at work in what is a uniquely Turkish response to this pandemic, one tilted in favour of a struggling economy.
Japan's healthcare system is overwhelmed. There is a concern over a lack of protective equipment for frontline workers. Hospitals are rejecting patients in record numbers, and many Japanese are ignoring social distancing guidelines.
Loudspeakers are blaring across Tokyo, warning people to stay home. Some are listening, many are not. Packing supermarkets, parks and playgrounds, even pachinko gambling parlors. Japanese health experts warn without social distancing, hundreds of thousands could die of coronavirus. Getting tested remains incredibly difficult. Futanagao's 4-year-old daughter Kaoru had a 104-degree fever, 40 degrees Celsius for 4 days. My wife and I were very nervous, he says, desperately asking for a test, but they kept saying no. They even hung up on me. Within days, his entire family was sick. They tried to get tested for 2 agonizing weeks. It was scary, he says. Our first daughter also had a fever, then a seizure. We took her to the hospital, but it was too late. Ichiko was just 16 months old when she died of flu-related meningitis 5 years ago. Nagao's wife and children were never tested for coronavirus. Dr. Fumiue Harada says the same thing is happening to a lot of his patients. Only 10% of my requests are accepted, he says. 90% of your requests denied. On average this month, Tokyo is testing less than 300 people a day. Japan's health ministry has repeatedly told CNN widespread testing would be a waste of resources. Just this week, some areas did begin offering drive-through and walk-through testing, but it's not widely available. Under-testing is not the only problem. hospitals are turning away ambulances at a rate 4 times higher than last April.
So your patient is laying there for up to 9 hours, getting no treatment whatsoever, and hospitals kept turning him away?
I never experienced being turned away by so many hospitals before the coronavirus outbreak, he says. Japan's medical association warns the public health system is on the brink of collapse, running low on ICU beds, ventilators, and personal protective equipment. We only get 1 mask per week, says Hiromi. CNN agreed not to use her full name or identify her hospital.
How is 1 mask a week possibly enough to keep you safe from the virus?
It's scary, she says, showing me the cloth mask she uses. Experts warn cloth masks don't protect nurses from coronavirus. Several Japanese hospitals have already become clusters of infection. I'm worried about how long this will continue, she says. I'm afraid there's no end in sight. With case numbers skyrocketing in Japan, this may be just the beginning.
Trukai Sports is next. Jeremy Mogi is at the sports desk.
Thanks, Torha, and welcome back to The Grind. PNG Olympic Committee urges athletes to prepare during lockdown and sporting activities to mark World Earth Day. Join me after the break.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. With the Olympics moved forward to 2021, the PNG Olympic Committee is encouraging athletes to maintain their focus toward qualifying for the event. Team PNG has already qualified 2 spots for the Tokyo 2020 Games, both from the sport of sailing, while other sports were in their respective qualification process when the coronavirus struck.
The Olympic Games have been postponed to next year, but Team PNG athletes are encouraged to maintain their focus and continue their preparations for the new date. President of the PNG Olympic Committee, said John Dawaninkura, welcomed the advice from the International Olympic Committee and the Tokyo 2020 Organizing Committee, saying PNG remains firm on its efforts to ensure that its athletes will be ready for the new date of the Games. He said in a media statement that it is unfortunate that the Games cannot be held this year, but said the decision is the right thing to do to ensure that this global pandemic does not cause unnecessary pain or take any more lives in the world. He thanked the IOC and the Tokyo 2020 Organizing Committee for their vision and concern for the well-being and health of the athletes, all involved in the Games and the public. Team PNG has already qualified 2 spots for the Tokyo 2021 Games, both from the sport of sailing, while other sports were in their respective qualification processes. Secretary General of the PNG Olympic Committee, Alvita Rapila, said that the support of their sponsors, partners, and member national federations is very important to them, and the PNG Olympic Committee are planning to stage their events at a later time when things return to normal. Fidelis Sukina, Trukai Sports.
The PNG Olympic Committee on Wednesday this week observed World Earth Day by doing activities associated with sustainability. This commitment is part of the International Olympic Committee's belief that the Olympic movement has both a duty and an opportunity to contribute actively to global sustainability in line with the vision of building a better world through sport.
To coincide with World Earth Day on the 22nd of April, the PNG Olympic Committee has launched its corporate sustainability practices with the creation of a sustainability patch at its PNG Olympic House, with staff spending time walking and picking up rubbish from the street as well. The staff also reusing plastic bottles as plant holders to create a garden to grow produce. The sustainability patch represents PNG OC's commitment to more sustainable practices. This commitment is part of the International Olympic Committee's belief that the Olympic movement has both a duty and an opportunity to contribute actively to global sustainability in line with the vision of building a better world through sport. Drawing on a series of practical guides, produced by the IOC called the Sustainability Essentials. The PNGOC undertook to find better ways of doing things and take the time to make well-informed decisions to maximize positive impact and minimize negative impact in the social, economic and environmental spheres. General Secretary and member of the IOC, Sustainability and Legacy Commission, Alvita Rapila, said the ultimate goal is to fully integrate sustainability principles and practices into day-to-day operations so that these become part and parcel of how we think and behave. Some of the practices include reducing purchasing of plastic water bottles and switching from plastic to metal container water bottles, transitioning to a paperless office and encouraging national federations and stakeholders to submit electronic documents where possible. Fidelis Sukina, Trukai Sports.
Still ahead in Trukai Sports, the ICC looks at new ways to stop ball tampering and Liverpool could become the English football champions. Stay tuned for the details.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. One of the biggest taboos in world cricket could soon become legal in the wake of COVID-19. It is understood the ICC is considering a form of illegal ball tampering in order to stop shining the ball the traditional way with saliva instead of artificial substances that could be used to help polish the ball, but under strict umpire supervision.
Swing bowling was Simon Doull's greatest weapon, and using saliva on the ball to shine it was the best way to exploit that. But that might not be possible in the wake of coronavirus.
And if you take that away, courtesy of the normal method of shining the ball, they need to be given something else.
The ICC is understood to be considering just that by allowing a polish to be used on the ball instead of saliva. How easy that is to police by the men in the middle is of primary importance.
In terms of an easy-to-apply regulation, an approved substance would be easy to apply.
The ICC Medical Committee wants clarity before cricket can resume, but using saliva to shine the ball isn't the only area of concern.
I think every ball, Steve Smith from Australia spits into his hands and then rubs them together and gets ready to catch the ball.
Doull's unsure whether you'll actually be able to stop all of those instinctive habits of cricket players. That's why he's come up with his own saliva-free option.
For the time being, you're allowed to pick the ball. You're allowed to pick the seam. You're allowed to pick it away at the ball and bring reverse swing into the game so much quicker rather than conventional swing.
As long as nothing artificial is used, like dirt from your pocket or even sandpaper, then Doull believes everything's fair game.
If you're going to throw the ball in from the boundary and land it in the dirt to scuff up one side of the ball, go for it. But the ball must be changed at 60 overs.
The officials don't write the law, they apply the law. Whatever the ICC determine fit, they will apply it from then forward.
The ICC with plenty to pick at over the coming months.
To football, Liverpool looks set to be crowned English Premier champions regardless of whether the season is complete or not.
European football's governing body has ruled out the season being declared void. In a statement, UEFA insisted that domestic campaigns would be settled on sporting merit, meaning the current results would help decide the final placings. Liverpool are 25 points clear of nearest rivals Manchester City, with 9 matches remaining. The Premier League still hopes to resume the season on June the 8th.
In New Zealand, while Kiwis look to the streets to commemorate Anzac Day, some top athletes were reigniting the Trans-Tasman rivalry, but not as we know it. Rowers and triathletes marked the day, but battling it out with their Aussie counterparts in the new world of virtual racing.
On decks and in garages, our top triathletes and rowers commemorating Anzac Day the only way they know how, battling it out against their Aussie counterparts in the new and unfamiliar world of virtual racing.
Every single hill I got dropped on, which for me is like never happens. Like for me, I'm like a mountain goat generally, but yeah, it was just good to have both countries on a virtual start line.
That start line may look very different to how this Trans-Tasman rivalry usually unfolds, this time on screens rather than roads, but the lack of real racing certainly didn't dent the competitive edge.
It's just cool to have a bit of banter, after the race, and say how they sucked and got dropped or whatever it is. You know, it's kind of fun.
For our top rowers, their decks served as their lakes in an erg race organised by two-time Olympic champion Eric Murray to pit the Aussies against the Kiwis. The race distance of 2,504 metres, paying tribute to the Anzac sacrifice.
It kind of felt nice, like knowing that you're doing it for a reason, with New Zealand and Australia like trying to clock out the most metres, but it was more like everyone giving it a go.
That's because this race was by no means restricted to both nations' elite rowers, instead open to anyone who felt like competing.
The domestic season got cut a little bit short, so to have something on Anzac Day that also brings the whole sort of rowing community together in this time, it's pretty cool.
Different sports united by the Anzac spirit, proving there's no slowing down the trans-Tasman rivalry.
That ends Trukai Sports. Tura will be back with the weather forecast for the next 24 hours.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
Weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow. Southern region, Port Moresby, cloudy with chance of afternoon shower or two. Daru, Popondetta and Alutau, mostly fine. Kerama, partly cloudy with a chance of afternoon shower or two. For the Mamasa region, Lae and Madang, mostly fine. Wewak and Vanimo, mostly fine and partly cloudy. New Guinea Islands region, Loringau and Kavieng, cloudy periods with chance of a shower or two. Kokopo, Rabaul and Kimbe, cloudy periods, and mostly fine in Buka. To the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, partly cloudy with chance of afternoon shower or two. Goroka and Kundiawa, cloudy periods with evening shower or two. And Mendi and Wabag, cloudy period with some rain showers.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
The way it is this Sunday, the 26th of April 2020. On behalf of the news team, I'm Turaho Morea. Pleasant viewing. Good night.